Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. Great big giant Wednesday show. Second hour, Carlo Broussard will be here, and we're going to talk about overcoming obstacles to the Catholic faith. This hour, Dr. George Delgado is our guest, and it is a pro-life open forum. If you have questions having to do with life and the care for the living in the many stages of life, from conception to natural death, you're welcome to give us a call, 888-318-7884. That's 888-318-7884. Dr. Delgado is the medical director of the Culture of Life Family Healthcare. He's the medical director also of Abortion Pill Reversal. He practices family medicine, providing medical care that's faithful to the teachings of the Catholic Church. And that abortion pill reversal, that is something that you are a pioneer in, if I may say so. Is that correct, Dr. Delgado?
That's correct. Thank you very much.
And thanks so much for being with us. Just to be so that people know, because I think some people will be shocked to hear this, having not heard you before. But a woman might take a pill or a series of pills to abort a child, and then change her mind. As a matter of fact, the changing the mind part might be more common than you think. But now something can be done about that once if she changes her mind.
That's right. And this medical abortion or abortion pill called mifepristone, previously called RU46, is now approved in the United States to cause an abortion up to 10 weeks of pregnancy. So now 35 to 45% of all abortions in our country are accomplished using mifepristone instead of via a surgical abortion.
So that is good news indeed. And now, is that connected to the fact that what I have heard is you're beginning a award from the Solidarity Health Share at around the time of the Walk for Life in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, they've decided to give me an award they give out yearly at their annual banquet, which is the night before the March for Life in Washington, D.C. So I'm very humbled to be receiving that, and also glad that I'll be able to talk a little bit about abortion pill reversal and the research that we're going to be carrying out in the future under the auspices of the Steno Institute, which is a research institute I founded in the last several months, which will focus on abortion pill reversal research to further the protocols, to refine them, to find out what works the best, and also eventually to branch out into other areas of pro-life research, because this is really sorely needed, because so many areas of research around life, there is such a great bias in the mainstream medical professions that we really need something that's unbiased, that allows us to look at these areas and bring good quality research to the table so that we can further our cause.
Yeah, you get the sense that the media, as it's currently constituted in much of the world, isn't really in favor of babies. They don't really like babies very much. I know they wouldn't like it classified that way, but it doesn't seem like an entirely implausible way to describe it.
Right. It's not just the media. It's also the medical profession as a whole. Even the profession that delivers babies, you think they'd like babies. They're the profession, the specialty that's most against babies by being the provider and the promoter of abortion and of contraception. So it's really quite ironic.
Well, you know who does love babies is Mary, the Mother of God. And today is the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, so a very happy Feast of Our Lady to you. And this is a perfect day to be doing a pro-life open forum. 888-318-7884 is our number, 888-318-7884. If you have questions about abortion or about the care of children in the womb, the care of mothers who are carrying babies, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. If you have end-of-life questions about caring for those who are in the dying stages or approaching the dying stages of life, or maybe incapacitated by a disability or a difficulty, a disease of some sort, all of that is just right in our wheelhouse this hour as we do a pro-life open forum, 888-318-7884. Dr. Delgado, something that I'm scared of, and maybe you will talk me out of being scared of it, but I am scared of it, is this CRISPR technology, this kind of cut and paste gene editing technology. It frightens me. And recently we had an announcement from a scientist in China, one that is, I guess it's not entirely clear whether it's verified or not, but he claims to have edited the genes of two babies in utero before they were born. What do you know about this, and should I be scared or not?
Well, you shouldn't be scared of CRISPR because CRISPR, like you said, is a kind of cut and paste technology for gene editing. It can be used for a lot of good things. For example, you could edit the genes in mosquitoes so that they no longer can transmit malaria, or scientists have used them to create bacteria that can decompose plastics. And eventually, this technology will probably be used to treat people with certain diseases so that they will no longer have those diseases. What gets dicey and what should concern us is when CRISPR is used on embryos and if it's used on germ lines. And germ lines are the cells that make the eggs in a woman and the sperm in a man. Because then the gene that is changed will be passed on to generation. That can be of concern because if there's a mistake, then the mistake is amplified and propagated, and then there might not be a way to stop it. Whereas if you're, let's say, treating an adult with a certain disease and you modify the genes in order to improve the disease, let's say there's a mistake, well, then that adult patient will suffer just like he or she could suffer from the side effects or the adverse effects of any other treatment. So I think that the ethics here, we really have to be very careful that we avoid doing this on germ cells, and these are cells that make the sperm and the eggs because of what I said before. But also we have to be very careful when the scientists in China purportedly did this not on babies in utero, but instead babies in vitro in glass in the test tube, and so that of course implies that there was in vitro fertilization, which we know that is intrinsically immoral because of how it violates the right of the embryonic person to be conceived within the marital embrace of a husband and wife. Instead, that person is created in a laboratory involving at least one third party, the scientist putting the sperm and the eggs together. So there's already the presumption that there is an immoral creation of that person, which of course doesn't affect the value and the sanctity of the life of that person, but just means that person has already been violated from in its own creation by how that person was created. And it puts the person at great risk because they're plucking cells off of that small embryo and then altering them and then putting them back. And so that is a risk because the integrity of that embryo is being challenged and possibly damaged by plucking off those cells. So it really involves a lot of things that make us pause, and really we need to be very, very careful with this. And certainly anything like this where it involves in vitro fertilization, we should stay away from that. And if it involves great risk to the embryo, we also should stay away from that.
Already, indeed. We have lots and lots of callers on the line already. It is a pro-life open forum. Dr. George Delgado is well prepared to answer your questions, prepared both as an ethicist and as a physician. And we're happy to take your calls, 888-318-7884. How about we start with Marie in Spokane, Washington, listening on the EWTN app. Marie, your question for Dr. Delgado.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking my call. My 20-year-old son and I were just having this conversation last night, and he understands that the church allows natural family planning for couples in order to have some flexibility in planning pregnancies due to financial constraints, or if the wife is overly, mentally or physically burdened by being pregnant every year. He understands that. But if the church allows us to prevent or cure diseases by using artificial means like getting the flu vaccine or over-the-counter painkillers and cold medicines and stuff like that, instead of trusting our natural immune systems, which NFP would be doing to prevent pregnancy using the woman's fertility, then why is using an artificial method of preventing a pregnancy bad? And my first response to him was that the flu or the cold or arthritis is kind of an aggressor and a pregnancy isn't. But then his response to that was, well, that's not true, because the reason the couple is using NFP is because it would be a big burden on them right now to have another baby. So he does see that as not necessarily an aggressor, but a burden and bad for them.
So if what we need is an explanation of why we can use medicines to battle things like bacteria and viruses, but we don't use artificial means to prevent pregnancy. Is that right, Marie?
Yeah. Basically, he wants to know why the artificial method using painkillers and stuff is okay.
Right. So I see what you're saying, Marie. And really, the use of the words artificial and natural are not very helpful in this discussion, because that's not really the differentiating point. We can use artificial things all we want as long as we're keeping with God's plan. And in fact, people who use fertility monitors to help with their NFP, those are artificial devices. Those are perfectly fine to use. So it's not that it's really natural. It's really that the difference is that when you give a medication that, let's say, is an artificial medication, or a vaccine, let's say, that is produced in ethical ways, you're not going against God's plan. You're using our collective intelligence and technologies to better human health. Now, however, if you used a vaccine, let's say, that was produced in a way that destroyed human embryos, which some of them have an association with the destruction of human embryos and fetuses, then, and there was not a good reason to use that vaccine, then you would be going against God's design, and that would be immoral. Now, what it is with the contraception and natural family planning, and by the way, some of us are getting away from the term natural family planning and are going towards something called fertility awareness. That might be a better word to use for this discussion. So if you use fertility awareness, what you're doing is you're respecting God's design, and you're taking advantage of the infertile times in the cycle, and sometimes, like I said, using artificial means to know when those infertile times are, and having intercourse during those infertile times, but abstaining during the fertile times in order not to conceive. So it's simply a strategy of when you have intercourse. It's really nothing artificial or natural about it. It's just a strategy. However, with contraception, and we could even include coitus interruptus with contraception. Coitus interruptus is when the male withdraws before the time of climax, and that's been used for thousands of years as a form of regulating births. And so that is not at all artificial if you think about it, but that, as well as all of contraception, goes against God's design. It goes against God's design by either circumventing, altering, or blocking the natural God-given fertility design. So that's exactly what happens with contraception. It's going against God's plan by either altering it, circumventing it, or blocking it, while fertility awareness programs, aka natural family planning, simply observe the cycles in natural and artificial ways. You know when you're infertile, you have intercourse when you're infertile, and then you don't get pregnant because you're not having intercourse during the fertile time. So that's really the fundamental difference. It's a fundamental difference of honoring God's design, not whether it's artificial or natural. Does that make sense?
Marie?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I think so, and I think he would probably accept that, but he might also say that, well, isn't it part of God's design that people get diseases, but we're treating those artificially?
Yeah, no, it's not God's design that we get diseases. It's God's design that we be healthy, vital people. Diseases only came about with the fall, with original sin. So if Adam and Eve had not committed original sin, we would not have any diseases. So diseases is part of the decay of the human race that occurred because of the fall. And so it was not originally part of God's plan. But like everything else, God will take something that is bad or even evil and turn it into good. And so when we do get diseases, sometimes that suffering draws us closer to God, and there God turns the tables, just like he did with the crucifixion. The crucifixion, killing the Son of Man, was in itself, it was a sin. It was an evil that Judas betrayed God, betrayed Jesus, and that he was crucified. However, God took that and used it as a means of salvation. So he took something that was evil and turned it into good, and that's what God does with diseases and other hardships that we have.
We got to leave it there. Marie, I hope indeed that was helpful to you. We've got 2 great specials running today at shop.catholic.com. All of our digital products, ebooks, e-magazines, MP3s are 50% off all week. So you go to shop.catholic.com to get that. And you can also save money on hundreds of other items in our shop. Just enter the code CALIVE18 at checkout when you visit shop.catholic.com and save 30% on hundreds of books, DVDs, CDs, and other stuff in our online store. CALIVE18 at checkout at shop.catholic.com.
We're glad you're with us. Stick around for more Catholic Answers Live.
What's stopping you from becoming a Catholic?
Why can't women become priests?
I don't understand why I have to earn salvation.
How is it possible that God created everything?
Why do I need to confess my sins to a priest?
Why is the Catholic Church so unwilling to The Catholic Church is too rich.
Catholics worship Mary and are committed.
As far as I'm concerned, all religions are equal.
You are called to communion with Dr. David Anders. Tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, Pro-Life Open Forum this hour. If you have a question about what the Catholic Church teaches, or what the truth is about human life in its earliest stages, in its middle stages, in its latest stages, those questions are all welcome today. Dr. George Delgado is our guest. Dr. Delgado practices family medicine and is trained at the National Catholic Bioethics Center in bioethics. So he's just the guy to talk to. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. We go now to Ernie in Northwest Ohio, listening on 87.9 FM Annunciation Radio. Ernie, your question for Dr. George Delgado.
Good evening, Cy and Dr. Delgado. Wonderful topic tonight and far from being worn out. So thank you for taking it on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Delgado, I wanted to hit on the subject of brain death and vital organ harvesting. And I want to be as specific as I can with this to get a specific answer from you. So I've followed this thread for a long time and have read on it for perhaps the last 20 years. So I think I have a nice layman's understanding of these issues. What my specific question is, if a patient who is compromised, who is being lined up to be a vital organ donor, and they are being sustained with life supports, and then their organs are deliberately harvested, how do we know that that patient, the moment before the harvesting of the organs, which then ceases all functions, how do we know that their soul has already left their body?
Well, that's a great question. We really have no way of knowing the moment of death. We are pretty good at predicting that death has already occurred. And so there's that interval to which you're alluding that we don't know where we are. So I think it's reasonable when you're talking about organ harvesting from supposedly dead people, that there needs to be some interval of time where you have some moral certainty that death truly has occurred, and death, and from our context, would be, like you said, separation of the soul from the physical body. Now, you also bring up the concept of brain death, which is, I would say, it's accepted in the mainline medical profession, but I think that there are some holes in the so-called doctrine of brain death. It's important to know that brain death, the definition was originally devised back in Harvard as a way to increase the harvesting of organs, because there's an organ shortage. And so they reason that, well, there may be some patients who are actually dead, but whose hearts and lungs are being kept alive by life support, but that the entire person is actually dead, just the tissues are being kept alive, and that it would be acceptable to take organs from them. Now, in principle, if a person truly is dead and we can verify that, then it would be fine to take organs from them, because you're essentially taking organs from a corpse that is being maintained by the heart and lungs that are being artificially controlled. However, the problems with this are, number one, can we be absolutely sure that the brain is truly the locus of control of the human organism? Or rather, is it not? And we really have, it's difficult to prove that, because if we look from a metaphysical standpoint, the soul really is the animating force of a person, and the soul is really distinct from the brain, where the brain is really a physical organ, and that kind of integrates and manages everything. But is it truly the ultimate integrating force? So that's the first question. The second question is, are we fully confident that we are precise and accurate every time when we make a diagnosis of brain death? I do not think so. The reason why is that there are cases of children who have been diagnosed as being brain dead, but whose parents insisted on them being kept on ventilators, which are breathing machines, and those children have gone through menopause. There's at least one documented case of that. Now, to go through menopause, you have to have certain areas of the brain functioning, an area called the hypothalamus, which is part of the brain. So that, to me, is proof that at least that one child was not truly brain dead.
Was that puberty, by the way? Did you?
Pardon me?
They went through puberty?
You went through puberty, yes.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
Yeah. So, and then there's also a case of a child who was in Oakland, California a couple of years ago, who was declared brain dead, and the Children's Hospital there was ready to take her off of the life support without the consent of the mother, and they actually even produced a death certificate. The mother was able to have the child transferred after much legal maneuvering and fight by the hospital to, I believe, a skilled nursing facility in New Jersey, where she remained on life support and remained alive for many, many months. Now, if she were truly brain dead, even though she were on life support, which is a ventilator, the integration of her physiologic functions would not be maintainable. So I think that's pretty good evidence that child was not dead, was not brain dead. So we have all these cases that are fairly disturbing. So I think the only way to do this with moral certainty would be to take the person who is presumed to be brain dead off of the life support, see that the heart stops beating, and then wait some prescribed amount of time, 1 to 5 minutes, whatever you choose, and then you could say with pretty good certainty, yes, that patient is dead, and then you would harvest the organs. Now, the transplant surgeons and all of their proponents don't necessarily like that, because they want the freshest organs as possible. But we as a society, from an ethical standpoint, we have to insist that organs only be taken from people that we know are dead, not that from people that we're declaring dead but may not actually be dead.
Ernie, how does that all strike you?
Well, we're almost there yet. It was interesting you made the comment earlier, supposedly dead. So that question lingers. And when we go back to that 1968 Harvard definition of brain death, I can't see it as been done for benevolent reasons. I can only think that the goodness in that, if there was any, has deteriorated up to this point with such a huge market behind organ donation. But when we look at a patient that's in line for harvesting, and they're breathing, and they're putting out urine, and they're menstruating, all of these attributes of a body animated with the soul, I would just be thinking that our theologians would look at that and say,
all right, well, Ernie, we got the point where we'll let Dr. Delgado respond on the other side, right back after this on Catholic Answers Live.
We're waiting for your call. Grab that line and get on board.
A generation ago, Christian parents didn't have to worry about how to explain transgenderism to their 9-year-old children or help their teenager deal with mockery at school for believing in traditional marriage. But today, as our culture decays, we have to know how to talk to our children about these issues. In Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues, Layla Miller and Trent Horn give parents the crucial tools and techniques to form children with the understanding they need, appropriate to their age and maturity level to meet the world's challenges. If we're not teaching our children how to understand tough moral issues, then the world will. Read Made This Way and learn how to give your kids a firm foundation on which to build a life of moral clarity and happiness. Order your copy of Made This Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or logging onto the shop at Catholic.com.
Christmas is coming, and with Advent already upon us, we want to make sure you know about our annual Christmas sale with hundreds of great faith-building resources all on sale at 20% off when you enter promo code CALIVE18 at checkout. With great new resources by Jimmy Akin, Trent Horn, Christopher Check, and other great Catholic teachers, there's simply no better time to stock up on resources to build up your faith and the faith of those around you. Phone 888-291-8000 or go to shop.catholic.com right now to take advantage of what is truly the best Catholic sale on the internet, going on now through the end of the year. And remember, enter promo code CALIVE18 at checkout to save 20% on hundreds of great resources throughout the store.
Tomorrow on More to Life. Don't talk to me like that.
We'll look at ways to respond to the cruel and unkind things people sometimes say.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, Open Forum. Dr. George Delgado, our guest this hour. Our topic, well, it's a pro-life open forum. If you have any questions about life and its various stages and how what is the proper way to treat that life, certainly a contentious topic in modern times, but not one that a morally serious person should find so difficult. I mean, there certainly are clear lines that we don't want to cross, like taking the lives of innocent people and that kind of thing. But applying those ideas, those moral teachings that you will find in the natural law and within the Catholic Church, it takes some thinking, and we're happy to think through it with you. If you'd like to give a call, 888-318-7884. Dr. George Delgado, again, our guest. And Ernie was just finishing up his point before we had to go to the break real quick there, Dr. Delgado, about organ donation and the fact that he's just not convinced, and it sounds like you're not convinced, that those who are harvesting organs are always careful that the donor is in fact deceased.
Right, and yeah, just to wrap up that question, the child at Children's Hospital in Oakland was Jahai McMath. She was a 13-year-old who was, like I said, declared brain dead. After she was transferred back to the East Coast, she ended up living 4 years, and there's no way a person would live 4 years, or whose heart would keep going for 4 years if she were brain dead, because what the ventilator does is it moves oxygen through the lungs and then oxygenates the blood, so the heart heart can beat on its own, but in order for everything to be regulated relatively well to last 4 years, that part of the brain had to have been working. So in my mind, this Jahi McMath was not brain dead. And so we clearly have cases where mistakes are made, or that show us that this concept of brain death is really not death of the organism of the person. So I agree with Ernie. We have to be very careful with that.
888-318-7884, the number. Again, pro-life open forum. Let us go. Oh, you know what? This caller actually dropped Hope in Buffalo, New York, called, and she just wrote this, or gave us this, and so I'll read it to you. I'm a pro-life Catholic OBGYN. Is there an ethical treatment for an ectopic pregnancy? What is your opinion, Dr. Delgado?
There definitely is, and for the sake of our audience, what is meant by ectopic pregnancy is when the human embryo implants in a place other than the inside of the uterus. The most common place for ectopic pregnancy is the tube. That's why it's often called a tubal pregnancy, probably about 90% of them. But they also can implant in the abdomen, sometimes on the cervix and other places. Well, with tubal pregnancy, there is no real controversy amongst Catholic ethicists that the treatment called salpingectomy is ethically appropriate, and that is a treatment where the portion of the tube where the embryo has lodged and implanted is cut out. And so here we apply what's called the principle of double effect. And there's one treatment that is cutting out of the diseased tube. The tube is diseased because the embryo should not be implanted there. In cutting out that tube, you're doing two things. One, you're saving the mother's life, because if it's left there, the tube will explode and maybe cause her to bleed to death. But the second effect that is foreseen but not wanted, not desired, is the end of that embryo's life. And the two, the bad effect and the good effect, are of equal magnitude because both their lives are of equal magnitude, and there's no better way to handle this situation. So in that case, it's perfectly acceptable. There are two other treatments for tubal pregnancies. I'm going to go to the one that most good Catholic bioethicists feel is probably morally illicit, that is not acceptable, and that is giving a drug called methotrexate. Methotrexate is a anti-cancer drug that can be given in these instances. It works or inhibits rapidly dividing cells. And where are cells rapidly dividing? We're, of course, in the human embryo. And what this does is it causes death of the embryo, and particularly the susceptible cells of the embryo are called the chorion. Now, the chorion is what becomes the placenta. At this time, early in the pregnancy, however, the chorion really should be considered part and parcel of the embryo, not as some separate structure. So really, by attacking the chorion, you really are attacking the embryo. So this drug really directly is a direct attack on the embryo. So the principle of double effect is not appropriately applied here, because it's not one action that has two effects. It's one action that has one effect, and that effect is the death of the embryonic person. By killing the embryonic person, it stops growing, so therefore you save the tube. So you can see there that the good effect flows from the bad effect, not two effects flowing from one action. So therefore, that would not be acceptable. The one that is controversial is called salpingostomy. Salpingostomy is when an incision is made in the tube and the embryo and its chorion are separated from the tube. Now, there is a recent article in the Catholic Medical Association journal called Lineker Journal, and Linacre. And in here, a good colleague and a good friend of mine, Dr. Donna Harrison, whom I respect a great deal, writes a very compelling argument that salpingostomy actually should be considered morally licit, because it is separation of the chorion, which is improperly implanted in the tube where it shouldn't be. That's why it's called ectopic, not in the right place, and that therefore it is not a direct attack on the embryo, and that it is analogous to the salpingectomy, which is also which is more of a separation of the diseased tube and the embryo from the mother. Well, I think that still is a bit controversial. I'm not totally convinced by her argument, but I think it is a very compelling argument. So I would include that salpingostomy is a gray area. The church itself has not made a pronouncement on salpingostomy or even methotrexate, but on salpingectomy has said that yes, that is an allowable treatment if there's no better treatment. In the future, we hope to have a way to take that embryo out and transplant that embryo into the same mother's uterus. There are scientists working on this with animal models to see if they can do that. There have been a few tries in humans that mostly have been unsuccessful, although there was a case report from many, many years ago that it was successful, but more recent tries have been unsuccessful.
Thank you very much, and we always appreciate when doctors or medical professionals call. We get a lot of those kind of calls or questions when you're on, Dr. Delgado, and we're happy to be helpful if we can to those practicing medicine. We go now to Lori in Washington State, listening to EWTN on Sirius Satellite, Channel 130. Lori, your question for Dr. Delgado.
Hi. First, I'd like to say thank you so much, Dr. Delgado, for your research into trying to develop the APR. I am a pro-life person. I'm out at Planned Parenthood daily. I'm a 40 Days for Life leader and a sidewalk advocate for life. I'm also a really good friend of someone I'm sure you know pretty well, Dr. Donna Harrison. She is the executive director of APLOG, the American Academy of Pro-Life OBGYNs. And I
serve on the board of APLOG.
The work you're doing to help us out there be able to give people real solutions to things. And so thank you so much. My question today is, could you be a little bit more, give more clarification about how the APR works? I'm a physical therapist and I do understand it, but one of the things that as a pro-life worker, I'd like to be able to explain it to somebody in a way, because we know when some people are taking the pills where I am located, we know that they're taking because they actually have appointments for the pill versus the surgical. What's the best way to get that word out? And also to medical professionals who seem to be very, very unaware. I had a discussion with a nurse last week who was a surgical nurse who had no idea that any of this existed.
Okay. So are you asking what's the best way to explain how it works, how the process works, or what's the best way to promote APR?
Both.
Both. Okay. All right. So let's start with the first one. So APR, abortion pill reversal, is a process whereby we can stop a medical abortion. The way the medical abortion pill works, the first medication is called mifepristone. It's a progesterone receptor blocker. And progesterone, as the name implies, progesterone, is essential for a normal, healthy pregnancy. Now, when mifepristone is given and it blocks progesterone receptors, then it negates the good effect of the progesterone. The placenta separates from the uterus and the embryo or the fetus dies. A simple way to explain this concept is using a key and lock analogy. A key goes into a lock, it turns the lock, and a door opens. The door opening is the good hormone effect. The key is the hormone, progesterone. The lock is the receptor. All of us have had the experience of putting a key into a lock, but the lock didn't turn. We call that a false key. That's analogous to the mifepristone. It blocks the receptor, it blocks the lock. So that false key goes in, the lock does not turn, so the door never opens, and you do not have the good effect of the progesterone. Fortunately, these keys are going in and out of the lock. They don't just sit there forever. So when the bad key comes out, there's a chance that a good key could go in. If we give supplemental progesterone like we do with APR, then we have more of the good guy keys lined up in front of that lock. So when the bad key comes out, it's more likely that a good key will go in there, turn the lock, and open the door, and we'll have the good hormone effect. And we give that supplemental progesterone to outcompete that bad key until the bad keys wash out of the system. That's how it works, and I think that's a good analogy to explain to people who maybe don't have much of a medical background. As far as how to get the word out, the best way is for people like you to be talking to all medical professionals that they know, talk to pregnancy resource centers, pregnancy medical clinics. If they want to join the network, they can go to the website abortionpillrescue.com. The program itself is now a program of Heartbeat International, and they've renamed it as Abortion Pill Rescue. The URL abortionpillreversal.com still works, but either one, Abortion Pill Reversal or abortionpillrescue.com, they can go there and get information on how to join the network of physicians, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and midwives. And also there's a large network now of pregnancy resource centers that are medical. They can join and then be available, because these women are going to be changing their minds, that we've demonstrated that they do sometimes change their minds, and they're going to be seeking help in the pro-life places. So they'll be seeking help at pregnancy resource centers and pregnancy medical clinics. So all of those people have to be ready for this and know what all of this is about, and be ready to either be able to treat them if they're medical, or quickly refer them to a medical practitioner in the area who is willing and capable of giving the progesterone in order to give that woman a second chance at choice.
Lori, thank you very, very much for that call. Appreciate it. We have to take a quick break, and it just so happens that as we go to that break, Assistant Producer Marie is here. Hello, Assistant Producer Marie.
Hello, my friends.
And why are you here?
I am here to talk about Radio Club. Right now we're giving away a really cool talk from Trent and Cy about how to survive disasters, and you can get by texting.
Joining Radio Club.
By joining Radio Club. It's a Radio Club exclusive, not an exclusive, an exclusive. So if you text CA Live, all one word, to 44222, you will be prompted to sign up and you will receive your free talk. We'd love to have you over there. It's a great place to get highlights and a letter from Cy and just kind of know a little bit more of behind the scenes of what's going on in radio and what our plans are, and especially going into the new year. It's a good time to sign up so that you know kind of what changes we're making, and we get some feedback from you guys too. So
just get tons of stuff too.
Yeah.
We give away stuff all the time there at Radio Club, and stuff you won't get anywhere else. It's not like we're handing it out somewhere else. How do you join Radio Club again?
You're going to text CA Live to 44222.
Or you can go
to CatholicAnswersLive.com and you can sign up there as well.
All right, CatholicAnswersLive.com.
Yeah.
Trent, as everyone knows, Trent is kind of my enemy, but he's a freak. He knows so much stuff, and we just sat down and started talking about what to do in a disaster.
Yes.
Turns out, apparently, he studies this stuff. He knew so much about a fire, here's what you do, a shooting, here's what you do, an earthquake, here's what you do.
I think
we might have even discussed nuclear war
really
at one point on
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So get it. It's fun. And it's a different one. You know, we did one recently with Tim. Have we done Carlo not too long ago?
And you can actually still get the one with Tim if you'd like to, if you text Tim Staples. But we have both being offered right now. So either CA Live or Tim Staples, whichever you want more. One is the Eucharist and the other is the how to survive disasters. But
just
it really
join Radio Club. We'll give you whatever you want.
Yeah.
You join by going to CatholicAnswersLive.com and signing up there, or
text CA Live to 44222.
This is Dr. Scott Hahn, and stay tuned for more Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic radio gives us an opportunity to become part of a larger family. It can be so lonely when we are struggling in our faith or just try to live our faith on our own. But Catholic radio connects us to that larger community of faith where we're able to get the support, the encouragement, and the grace that we need to not just struggle on, but to really celebrate all the blessings that God brings into our life through our Catholic faith.
Dr. Greg Popchak thinks Catholic radio is important. So should you.
Pope Francis reminds us that it does not take a specialized degree in theology to become a great evangelist. We're all called to evangelize. Think about the woman at the well. After she encountered Jesus, she immediately went into the city and invited others to meet him as she had. You and I can go out now and do the same. And St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. Get involved today by contacting us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, Pro-Life Open Forum. Dr. George Delgado, our guest, and lots of folks on the line, so I'm just going to keep moving. Rose in San Antonio, Texas, listening on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Holy smokes, it's the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe today. Happy to have you with us, Rose. Your question for Dr. Delgado.
I'm calling because mainly for my daughter. When she was like 15, 16 years old, she had an emergency surgery because she developed a hemorrhagic, where she ovulates, but it developed into a blood sac, and it was formed over her ovary. So she went in for an emergency surgery to relieve that. And I was told that she should have had a pediatric surgeon to do it, but since it was an emergency, it was just the, surgeon on call. And what happened is when he had taken, I don't know if they call it wedging, but he took off the ovary to the point where now when they try to look for it in a sonogram, they have a hard time finding it. And she's also developed that same ovary site, like a torsion. She hasn't been able to get pregnant since she's been married for many years. She's already 34 years old. But I don't know that her OB-GYN doctor has offered her anything other than the fact that they've done monitoring for temperature to see if she's ovulating, which they say she is, but they don't know which ovary is doing that because she's having such a hard time getting pregnant. And so I don't know what else could they try that maybe this doctor doesn't know or can't offer, or I don't know if it's...
All right. Well, let's let Dr. Delgado respond.
Yeah, so, she may be ovulating on that rudimentary ovary, or certainly on the other one, assuming the other one's fine. But she hasn't gotten pregnant all these years. There's obviously a problem. So the best thing would be for her to get an evaluation with a naprotechnology physician that can look and see what's going on. And the philosophy of naprotechnology is to understand and identify underlying defects, correct those defects so that the natural reproductive system can work the way it should, and that women can then get pregnant through the natural marital embrace the way God intended, instead of circumventing, blocking, or destroying the reproductive system. And in Texas, there are a couple of different naprotechnology doctors. There's Dr. Jeremy Calamandrides in Austin, and there is another one in San Antonio, and I'm blanking on his name right now, but you can certainly look him up. I would go to naprotechnology.com and then look for naprotechnology doctors in San Antonio area where you are and who can help you with that. So naprotechnology.com would be the way. You can also check the website of Fertility Care Practitioners of America. They also have a listing of the naprotechnology doctors throughout the country, and you can look at that.
Okay, that first doctor in Austin you said was Dr.
Jeremy Calamandrides, Kalimidres.
Okay.
First name. Yeah.
All right, we will leave it there. Thank you so much, Rose. We go now to Amber in Rochester Hills, Michigan, listening on the radio there. I don't have a call sign, so we'll just say welcome from Rochester Hills. Amber, your question for Dr. George Delgado.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. So I had a miscarriage a few years back, and the doctor at the time that was going to perform basically she said that she had to perform a D&C to remove the baby. And I basically argued with her multiple times that there should be other ways to remove the fetus. And then, according to her, and she still argued with me that that was the only way to remove the baby. Is there I was about 10 weeks pregnant. Is there any other way that possible that could have happened?
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions first, just to clarify. When the doctor said that she needed to do a dilation and curettage, or DNC, was at that time, was your baby already dead?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So once the baby is already dead, then it's really it's a medical prudential judgment as to what's the best way. At 10 weeks, you can do a couple of different things. There are really three options. One is what we call expectant management, and it's to wait for the body to recognize that a miscarriage has occurred, and oftentimes the body will then start contractions and push the baby out. Now, at 6 to 7 weeks, that's almost always happens. At 10 weeks, sometimes it's not going to happen. The body just won't recognize it. But you can still try and wait and see what happens. If the woman doesn't want to wait, or if she's waited and nothing's happening, after a couple of weeks or however long the doctor wants to give it, then the other two options are to give a medication that causes contractions. In this case, it's called misoprostol. Misoprostol induces the uterus to contract. And misoprostol is used for a variety of things. It turns out it was initially developed to treat stomach ulcers. It's not used much for that anymore. It is used at the end of pregnancy to help with induction of labor, to cause so-called ripening of the cervix. And it unfortunately is used as part of the medical abortion process. It's given 24 to 48 hours after mifepristone, the medication we discussed earlier that causes the death of the baby, to cause the contractions. But in this case, it's used for an ethically good reason, that is to empty the uterus of the remains of the baby that's already died. So that is one that's very common. It can be used at 10 weeks and it can be used very successfully. Then the third thing would be the surgical procedure that you had, the DNC. And as to why the doctor insisted on that, I can't tell you for sure without knowing the particulars of the case, but in general we do offer those three treatments: the expectant management, the misoprostol to cause the uterus to contract, or the surgical procedure.
Okay, Amber?
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you very, very much for that call. Dr. Delgado, a lot of pregnancy-related questions today, and that tends to happen when you're on. We get a theme, we get going in a direction, and we'll get a lot of calls in that direction. We did not talk about end-of-life issues today. It does strike me that we hear lots of news, though, about countries and in the United States expanding suicide, and in some cases even euthanasia, and in some cases even euthanasia that the patient did not request. Any news on that front, or do we just continue down a bad road there?
Well, unfortunately, we're continuing down a bad road. Right now there's a big push in Maine, the state of Maine, to have physician-assisted suicide approved. And the other states where it is approved now are California, Colorado, Hawaii, Montana, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, and also in the District of Columbia. Physician-assisted suicide, generally the laws are very similar in all the states, and that is where a patient who has a 6-month prognosis of living that is usually verified by 2 physicians and wants to end his or her own life is given the legal right to obtain lethal doses of medications from a physician and then takes those medications his or herself. Then of course the problem with this is that, number one, we're aiding and abetting a suicide, which we should never do. Instead of giving that person good palliative care and good support, it's similar to if a patient had a 6-month prognosis and we're sitting on the ledge of a building ready to jump off. We wouldn't nudge that patient, encourage that patient to jump off. No, we would try to talk that patient out of it. We should be doing the same thing here, but this is the medicalization of killing. And we know that the slippery slope leads to voluntary euthanasia, where a patient asks that we kill him or her, and then to involuntary euthanasia. And that's happened in Belgium and the Netherlands.
Wow.
And they're euthanizing children and babies.
Oh, Lord. Lord, help us. That we need help in these times. Dr. George Delgado, thank you so much for coming and sharing this Pro-Life Open Forum with us. Coming up next, in just a few minutes, Carlo Broussard here to talk about overcoming obstacles to the Catholic faith. Right back with more Catholic Answers right after this.
As Catholics, we hear expressions like dogma, doctrine, deposit of faith, and of course, magisterium. And adding to the confusion, we have the ordinary magisterium and the extraordinary magisterium. So what if you were looking for one book written for the layman that explained what all these terms mean and how they interact in the lives of the Church and her faithful? The fact is, no such book existed until now. Brand new from Catholic Answers Press is Jimmy Akin's latest book, Teaching with Authority. Teaching with Authority is not about specific church teachings, it's about church teaching itself. A unique and long overdue resource for Catholics as well as those inquiring about the faith, Teaching with Authority will help deepen your understanding of what the Church teaches by showing you how, why, and where she does. Get your copy of Teaching with Authority today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging onto the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Is the Church wrong on contraception? In a culture that worships the pursuit of sexual pleasure, the Catholic Church's teaching on contraception can seem archaic and unintelligible. Its critics say it's outdated, theologically unfounded, and even harmful. And even faithful Catholics can have difficulty explaining this moral teaching. Catholic Answers is out to change all of that. That's why we've just released Trent Horn's dynamic new DVD, The Case Against Contraception. Using scripture, papal and magisterial teachings, natural law, and new insights provided by social science and medicine, Trent puts forward a compelling case for Catholic teachings with his trademark charity and persuasive graciousness. Be prepared to give a defense. Order your copy of The Case Against Contraception today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Christmas is coming, and with Advent already upon us, we want to make sure you know about our annual Christmas sale with hundreds of great faith-building resources all on sale at 20% off when you enter promo code CALIVE18 at checkout. With great new resources by Jimmy Akin, Trent Horn, Christopher Check, and other great Catholic teachers, there's simply no better time to stock up on resources to build up your faith and the faith of those around you. Phone 888-291-8000 or go to shop.catholic.com right now to take advantage of what is truly the best Catholic sale on the internet, going on now through the end of the year. And remember, enter promo code CALIVE18 at checkout to save 20% on hundreds of great resources throughout the store.
Hey everyone, Carlo Broussard here. Are you looking for an on-fire Catholic speaker to come and speak at your conference or parish event? If so, you're in luck. We've got a host of Catholic Answers speakers, including myself, just waiting to get on a plane and come see you. Just go to CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com to get all the information you need to make your event the talk of the town. That's CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com. We look forward to seeing you.
So, you're listening to Catholic Radio. I think it's safe to say that you probably want to become like Jesus. Theosis is a fancy word used to explain the process of becoming like Christ. It's how God takes sinners like you and me and transforms us into who we were created to be. Basically, rockin' saints. Clumsy Theosis is a podcast where I take 2,000 years of Catholic goodness, draw from the great minds and spiritual masters of the Church, boil it down, distill it, and give practical advice to 21st century Christians. Basically, we'll learn how to do this Catholic thing like a boss. Subscribe to Clumsy Theosis wherever good podcasts are found.
Would you like to become a Catholic Answers Live parish partner? We need you to help us spread the word at your local parish. We'll give you bumper stickers, window clings, flyers, everything you need to let your parish know about the best Catholic radio show on the air. We want you to partner with us. Email us at calpartners@catholic.com today and become a Catholic Answers parish partner. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Cy Kellett, your host, and Advent continues. So Advent blessings to you and yours, but it's a very special day today. It's the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So here are the people who should celebrate that. Everybody in Mexico and everybody outside of Mexico. Those are the two places where people should be celebrating the Feast of Our Lady. Would you agree with me, Carlo Broussard?
I would agree with you, Cy Kellett.
Yeah.
That's a great day.
It is a great day. And Father just preached beautifully on the feast this morning. He talked about Juan Diego and Juan Diego's faith in the sacraments,
Beautiful.
which it's you might not think, well, is that a talk on Our Lady of Guadalupe? But it was really good. It was really good, because Juan Diego was he sees Our Lady, and she's very beautiful and everything, and she was going to talk to him again. And he knows it, but he goes over to visit his uncle who's sick, and he realizes his uncle needs the sacraments. And so instead of going back the way where he would see Our Lady, he went to go get a priest. He went a different direction to go get a priest. And Father was talking about how deep his faith must be, that he saw Our Lady, but he didn't return to her. He served his uncle's need for the sacraments. So he had deep faith in the sacraments, and he was encouraging us all to have similar faith.
Amen to that.
This hour, however, well, you know what? All this talk of Our Lady on a Marian feast day and all that might be an obstacle for some people to Catholicism. Some people find Mary a big obstacle to the Catholic faith, but we're going to talk about overcoming obstacles to Catholicism this hour. Do you have obstacles to accepting Catholicism as true? Maybe you're a Protestant who thinks Catholicism is wrong, or maybe you're just wondering about it. I'm attracted, but I can't make the jump. There are lots and lots of us who are fallen away Catholics, and I say us because you being a fallen away Catholic doesn't make you not one of us. You're still one of us. You're just doing something else. Atheists and agnostics, they have objections. This is what Carlo does. He's got a wonderful book called Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church. And we'd like to help folks overcome those obstacles. Or if you have someone in your life who's expressing an obstacle to the Catholic faith, we'd like to help you have good and helpful answers to that person. 888-318-7884 is our number. 888-318-7884. Carlo, okay, so let's say Mary is an obstacle. Okay, so here we are on a Marian feast. Oh, those Catholics again with their Mary, Mary, right. Mary. That's why I can't be one of those Catholics. I'm all about Jesus.
Right, and we would agree that we're all about Jesus as well. And in being all about Jesus, we're also about his mystical body. And we're all about honoring those great members of his mystical body, the greatest member being his mother. The Blessed Mother Mary. And so on this feast day, it could very well be an obstacle for many Christians out there. Their obstacle may be a flawed understanding that we worship Mary, when of course we don't worship Mary. The church does not teach that we must give her the honor that is due to God alone, right? Because she is a creature. Yeah. The church teaches she is a creature. She's a finite being, the most exalted creature within the created order, indeed. But we give honor where honor is due, but that's within the finite order, right? Only God alone is due our worship and adoration. So if that may be the obstacle, or it just may be, well, we focus too much on Mary. So they might concede and say, yeah, I realize you don't worship Mary, but you'll pay too much attention to Mary. And they perceive that as taking away from Jesus.
Right.
And my response is, maybe somebody could get caught up in their devotion to Mary to such a degree where they never personally meditate on Jesus himself, right? And establish that relationship with the Lord, with our Savior. And that's something that we need to do. We need to establish that intimacy with Jesus. But at the same time, if we have a balance of both, inasmuch as we meditate upon Mary and her role in the economy of salvation, as she herself said in her Magnificat, inspired by the Holy Spirit, that her soul doth magnify the Lord.
Yeah.
So as we look to Mary, she gives us a better picture, a sharper focused picture or image of Jesus Christ. And so we only look to Mary insofar as we can better serve Christ and to grow into a more intimate, deeper personal relationship with the Lord. So, all of our Marian teachings, all of the Catholic Church's teachings about Mary are all Christocentric. They're meant to point us to Christ, not to take our attention away from Christ.
Overcoming those obstacles to the Catholic faith is our topic this hour. If you've got an obstacle to Catholic faith you would like to share with us or maybe get cleared up, or even if you don't believe it can get cleared up, give us a try. We'll see what we can do. 888-318-7884. Of course, as always, if you're Catholic, you're welcome to call. If you're not Catholic, you're welcome to call. Everybody's welcome to call. 888-318-7884. Already lines filling up. Carlos, shall we?
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and give it a shot.
All right. Let's go to Scott in Dallas, Texas, listening on KATH 910 AM. Scott, your question for Carlo Broussard.
Hello, gentlemen. My question is the Lord, or our Lord Christ, is said to have died and rose physically from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scientific impossibility. And so what I do is I say, well, Christ died and he rose, and I turn off the science and turn on the faith. So Christ died and rose from the dead physically. That's a scientific impossibility. So that would seem to be an obstacle to a lot of people. Can you make some comments on that or reflect on that?
All right, Scott. Yeah, so you're right in the sense that it's scientifically impossible. That is to say, given the laws of nature, corpses don't come back to life, right? All things being equal. That's not scientifically possible. But notice I emphasize scientifically because there are no natural causes that can bring a dead corpse back to life. In order for a dead corpse to come back to life, there would need to be some cause outside of the boundaries of physical reality, some transcendent cause that actually has the power to give being where there is no being, or to give life where there is no life. So when we're in the framework, or within the box, you might say, of scientific data and physical causes and natural causes, then yes, dead people stay dead. They don't rise. But when you get outside the boundaries of the physical world and the physical order, and you allow for transcendent causes to be operating in and through the physical world, well then a miracle, any miracle, and the greatest miracle being the resurrection of our Lord, it becomes a possibility once you grant the existence of such a transcendent cause as God. So you're right, Scott, in saying that it's scientifically impossible. Now, when you mention about responding with faith, I would just mention for our listeners out there, Scott, and even for you to think about this, that it is true that you respond with an act of faith to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior based upon his resurrection. But note, Scott, that your response, your act of faith is not without evidence. It's not belief without evidence. It's belief in response to the historical evidence that Jesus died and that he rose again. And so one of the things I point out in my book, Scott, Prepare the Way, you might be interested in getting a hold to a copy of it. In one of the chapters, I have a chapter that's devoted to sketching out an apology or defense of the historical resurrection of Jesus Christ, to show that we have good reason to conclude as a matter of history that Jesus rose from the dead. And it is that reasonable ground that makes your act of faith a reasonable act of faith, rather than just some blind impulse of the mind, which the Catechism of the Catholic Church says does not constitute faith in paragraph 156, because belief or faith is, rather than being belief without evidence, it's belief in response to the evidence. We have motives of credibility for making that act of faith in Christ. What do you think of that, Scott?
It makes a lot of sense, but I guess the thing is, an obstacle is if Christ rose, is he up in heaven now walking around? Or
yeah, very good question.
Why didn't he stick around? Why didn't he stick around here?
Yeah, you know, Scott, I'll agree with you, brother, that there is a mystery as to why Christ willed for there to be this interim period between his resurrection and ascension and the final second coming at the end of time. You know, why didn't Christ rise in all of his glory and initiate the final judgment then, and the resurrection of the dead and the new heaven and the new earth? And ultimately, Scott, we have to bow in humility to that question and say we simply do not know. It is only in God's wisdom and his providential plan for why he willed to have this period of waiting and journeying to the final second coming at the end of time. But that knowledge will be given to us by a divine light, given to the intellect at the end of time, at the final judgment, when we come to a full understanding of God's providential plan and how he ordered all things to the good. So we may not know the reason, but we know, Scott, that there is a rhyme and a reason to God's providential plan.
Scott, I hope that is helpful. Thank you so much for that call. This hour, we're taking your questions on obstacles to embracing the Catholic faith, whether they are your obstacles or someone else's. We're happy to talk with you about them. Carlo Broussard is our guest. Carlo is apologist here at Catholic Answers, the author of Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church. And he's also the star of some CDs and DVDs, including the ever-popular, now I forgot the name of the relativism one. What's it? Your Truth?
Your Truth, My Truth. How to understand and refute relativistic thinking. And when you buy that audio CD of about 70-minute lecture or talk, there's an actual ebook that you can, or in PDF format, that you can download off of the internet.
If you'd like to talk about overcoming obstacles to the Catholic faith, give us a call, 888-318-7884. And while I got Carlo here with me, I'll invite you to come with me and Carlo and with Tim Staples and our president, Chris Check, and the prior of St. Michael's Abbey up the road from us, Norbertine Father Chrysostom Bear, and some of the other folks from Catholic Answers here when we take a cruise of the Caribbean February 10th through 17th aboard Holland America's MS New Statendam. We're going to do a whole lot of apologetics. We're going to do a whole lot of praying together and conversing together and just enjoying one another's company as we cruise around the Caribbean and visit Fort Lauderdale, the Bahamas, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Mexico. You better believe we'll talk about Our Lady of Guadalupe when we hit Cozumel, Mexico. You can come with us. You just got to go to CatholicAnswersCruise.com and sign up. Do you know now what you're going to talk about already? Do you know what your talks will be?
Well, I haven't articulated the distinct topics yet as far as the talks go.
Okay.
And specifically what I'll be talking about. But sort of the general theme is similar to what we did this past weekend at our Founders Circle.
Oh, right.
And the idea is you're a better apologist than you think. And so we want to try to get the audience to shed some light upon the fact that, hey, they know quite a bit about the Catholic faith and they know how to answer quite a few questions. So we want to bring that to the foreground for them and let them come to an awareness that, hey, I can do this, in order to build up the confidence.
Yeah.
And then try to refine that which they already do know and take them a little deeper so that they're even more equipped and more confident to engage in conversations with folks.
Very, very cool.
Yeah. And like I would say, I guess I can say this, that in one of the talks, I'll be, which is what I did this past weekend for our Founders Circle meeting, is trying to teach them that to bring to light that they already know how to show that the wisdom of the world that St. Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 3:19 is actually not so wise. So when we're talking about relativism, there is no absolute truth. When we're talking about skepticism, I'm skeptical or I doubt everything.
Yeah.
Or we're talking about scientism. Science is the only source of genuine knowledge, right? And from our experience this past weekend, they were they were figuring it out. They
it was
knew,
fun because they were really participating by the end. They knew that they could answer those questions.
They knew how to show that the wisdom of the world is not so wise after all.
Right. I hope maybe on the cruise we should play Catholic trivia because that was also
Wouldn't
a fun
that be
part of
great?
it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun indeed.
I have to say, though, before we go to the break, and we want, and again, we're inviting you to join us on this cruise. Just go to CatholicAnswersCruise.com to find out all about it. But you and Todd Agliolaro, are the publisher, the head of the publishing here at Catholic Answers, are sitting at the same table during trivia.
And I must say, I'm glad I had him on my team.
And he's glad he had you on his team. But I was very impressed that the first question from the two of you was, what's going to keep us from cheating? I was like,
I must say, that was Todd.
Oh, that was Todd.
Asked that,
yeah.
Not me.
All right. Well, it's supposed to be your goodwill that keeps you from cheating, your conformity to the will of God. All right. Oh, this is going to be great. Chris Check, Tim Staples, Carla Broussard, Father Chris Bear. I'll be there carrying the bags. There'll be some other folks from Catholic Answers there and lots of people who really love the Catholic faith and just want to learn about it and pray together and just have a great time. Go to CatholicAnswersCruise.com and sign up.
Hello, this is Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco. Keep your dial tuned to Catholic Answers Live.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
Every single day, I get to help our listeners of the Sunrise Morning Show wake up, find out what's going on in the church and the world, and then walk with them as we all seek to grow in knowledge and love of Jesus Christ and the Catholic faith. I mean, how could it get any better?
The Sunrise Morning Show with Anna Mitchell and Matt Swain. Tomorrow morning, 6 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their faith and values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Can't help but dance when you hear that groovy Catholic Answers music. You cannot help but dance. 888-318-7884, the number. Overcoming obstacles to the Catholic faith is our topic, and Carla Broussard is our guest. On the line is Patrick in Katy, Texas, where Nick comes from. Nick, you come from Katy, Texas.
I do.
And he's listening on Guadalupe Radio. And Patrick from Katy, Texas, your question for Carlo.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, great. I'm a lifelong Catholic, very proud of my faith, but the elephant in the room, today, unfortunately, is the priest abuse scandal and the worldwide network of homosexual predator priests that, we don't want to talk about, but people are looking at the church and looking at this cover-up and this evil from Cardinal McCleric, and then if you're educated, he's a guy that helped negotiate the deal with the Communist Party in China to, let them appoint bishops now. And it's such a, and then they got this guy, this Archbishop of Chicago, who is another character. And I went to confession. I told the priest, I don't trust the bishops. I think they're when I see pride, you can't be a saint unless there's humility. When I see all the pride and you follow the money, it really discourages me. And I have to focus on the saints like Damien Malachi and John Vianney and Maximilian Kolbe to get encouraged about our denomination. But how do you respond to that? A lot of people aren't well educated about it, but there is a huge cancer in the Catholic Church.
All right. That very straightforward. Thank you, Patrick.
Amen. Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick. So I think fundamentally what I would say, first of all, Patrick, is to upfront acknowledge that there is grave sin being committed among our church leaders, both bishops and priests. And we acknowledge that. And we say, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, right? And we beg for God's forgiveness of these individuals, and we beg for other people to forgive us as well. So we've upfront acknowledged that there is corruption in the church hierarchy, there is sin, okay? So we can acknowledge that. But then the next, and we can feel and we can experience a righteous indignation, right? And a righteous anger with regard to that corruption and sin among our church leaders in the Catholic Church. But then we ask the question, well, does that give one good reason to leave the Catholic faith or to reject the Catholic faith? And I would answer no to that, Patrick, precisely because even though these leaders in the Catholic Church are sinners and grave sinners at times, they also possess an office or a role in a ministry in Christ's church that has been established by Christ himself. And Christ has made certain promises that he would send his Holy Spirit to protect his church in matters of truth when it pertains to God's revelation about what we must believe to be saved and that which we must do in order to be saved and what constitutes the appropriate and the right Christian life. So we acknowledge the sinful human element of the church, but we also have to always remember that divine element, which has divine origin in the promises of Christ himself. And you know, Patrick, you mentioned how we look to those saints of old, and I would agree with you. Yes, we must look to those who have actually taken the medicine of the Lord Jesus Christ and who have succeeded in the Christian life and become saints. But even more so, Patrick, I would encourage you and everyone listening that we got to look to Jesus. Jesus is the source and the summit of our faith. Jesus is the reason why we have faith in the first place and why we are Catholics in the first place, because it is the church established by Jesus, and Jesus made certain promises to protect his church in matters pertaining to God's revelation and our salvation. And that, Patrick, I think, is what we have to hold on to. The divine gifts that Christ has bestowed or invested to his church, has given over to his church, namely truth, the truth that is given to us through the official teachings of the church, primarily the infallible teachings, and then the life that Christ has given us. John 10:10, I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. That life that is given to us in the sacraments, right? And so it's these divine things that we must try our best to keep our focus on, not to the exclusion of turning a blind eye to the sinful elements of the church, by no means. But in order that the sinful elements of the church, of the human aspect of the church, does not lead us into the death grip of despair and depression and losing hope and eventually, God forbid, leading the church, we need to hold on to those divine aspects of the church that have been given to us by Jesus Christ himself. So it's my faith in Christ that keeps me within the fold and not giving up on the church that he gave us. And one final thought, Patrick, just as I do not leave Jesus himself for the sinful leaders that he appointed in the first century, all of them except one left him on the cross, right? So too, I do not leave Peter, the one who Christ appointed to be the leader of his church. I do not leave Peter because of Judas. There's always going to be a Judas in the fold, right? But we don't want to leave Peter because of Judas. And we don't leave Peter because of our faith in Jesus Christ, who appointed Peter to be the leader of his church and by way of extension, all of his successors.
Okay, Patrick?
Very good.
Very good. All right. You're preaching it like it's your birthday there, Carlo.
Well, this is a huge... I caught that one. It is my birthday.
Happy birthday, Carlo.
Thank you very much.
I forgot to wish you a happy birthday.
No, it is a major obstacle. I mean, Patrick hit the nail on the head. Yeah, you know, he said it's the elephant in the room, and this is one of the major obstacles that many people are facing. In fact, I'm going to be giving a talk pretty soon here in a few days, and you know, the host who's asking me to give the talk for a private event, you know, is saying, you know, let's try to address some of the turbulent times that we're facing in our church today, and what can we hold on to in the midst of that darkness in order that we do not lose hope. And I think the key is focusing on those divine gifts that Christ has given to his church, the gifts
Amen.
of truth and life. It is therein lies the splendor of the Catholic faith, despite the sinful nature of the sinners within that make up the church.
And the particular names that Patrick called out, we're not saying we know that these particular people are sinners. We're just saying
that's right.
there's
That's
a lot
why,
of sin.
Amen. That's why I addressed it on a general level.
Right.
I do not have sufficient knowledge to make direct accusations of particular individuals.
Right.
Maybe some do, but I don't. But nevertheless, regardless if a particular individual has failed the church in grave, serious ways, still that is not a reason to leave the Catholic Church.
All right, let's go to Jacqueline on line 1. Are you there, Jacqueline?
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Jacqueline. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing really very awesome today.
And who are you married to, Jacqueline?
Yeah, we have a special message for Carlo today.
Okay, how are you connected with Carlo?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Birthday, dear Daddy.
You heard that, Daddy?
Yeah. Hey,
That's
that was the Broussard family.
It sure was. Thank you, guys. I love you.
I love you too.
Oh, thank you so much, Jacqueline and all the kids. And they are all great singers except one. I don't know who that was. No, just kidding, Carlo. We'll be right back with more Overcoming Obstacles of the Catholic Faith with the birthday boy, Carlo Broussard, right after this.
Hello, this is Bishop Jeffrey Monforton, Bishop of the Diocese of Steubenville. Make sure you keep it on Catholic Answers Live. God bless you.
Advent is upon us and Christmas approaches. Catholic Answers wants you to know about our annual Christmas sale with hundreds of great faith-building resources all on sale at 20% off when you enter the promo code CALIVE18 at checkout. With great new products on doctrine, church history, morality, apologetics, and much more, there's simply no better time to stock up on resources to build up your faith and the faith of those around you. Phone 888-291-8000 or go to shop.catholic.com today to take advantage of what is truly the best Catholic sale on the internet going on now through the end of the year. And remember, enter promo code CALIVE18 at checkout and save 20% on hundreds of great resources throughout the store.
With the recent commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the release of Humani Vitae, there have been fresh attacks on Catholic teaching from outside and unfortunately inside the Church. That's why Catholic Answers thought it critical to provide a vigorous affirmation of Pope Paul VI's prophetic wisdom with our newest book, Inseparable: 5 Perspectives on Sex, Life, and Love in Defense of Humani Vitae. We asked 5 distinguished contributors to reflect on and defend Humani Vitae from 5 perspectives, each of them compelling, together forming a mosaic of truth. Don't be caught uninformed when the topic comes up among friends, family, and coworkers. Order your copy of Inseparable today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or by visiting the shop at Catholic.com.
Tomorrow on More to Life. Don't talk to me like that.
We'll look at ways to respond to the cruel and unkind things people sometimes say.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
I'm trying to say fewer cruel and unkind things. Also, I'll have to listen to that show with the pop checks. The main way I limit myself in saying cruel and unkind things is I just don't talk with Trent Horn. And then I don't feel tempted to say cruel and unkind
And
things.
Zai is saying that based upon previous discussions at Fun Times.
Yeah. You know I love Trent. Again, 888-318-7884, our number. Carlo Broussard, our guest. Beautiful call from the Broussard family just a moment ago, and that was so nice to get that call to wish their dad happy birthday. So you were
Yes,
born
it
on the
was.
feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
I was, yeah.
Yep. And Eric also in the building.
That's right. Yeah, we
found out
share
this
a
morning.
birthday, indeed.
And guess what we're missing right now? I just found out.
What's that?
There's apparently a little bit of a soiree in honor of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
That's right. They're having a
down
party
the hall from us.
down the hall without
Right.
us, Si.
How dare they honor Our Lady without us?
But that's all right. We're going to have a party with the listeners.
Yeah,
We're going to party with the mind and knowing the truth of the faith.
The only Carlo Broussard could say that. Going to party
an
with the
intellectual
mind.
party,
I
man.
like it. It's like an angelic party. The angels party with the mind.
Amen, they do.
Gary in Addison, Ohio, listening on the Catholic Answers app. You are up next. Thanks for downloading the app onto your phone, Gary. Your question for Carlo.
Hi, Carlos. And
Si.
my question is about marriage.
Yeah.
I'm coming into the church. I'm in my second year RCIA.
Okay. Blessed be God for that,
And-
Gary. Welcome.
Thank you, Si. But the reason this is coming up is because it's actually a topic that we're discussing this week in class.
Okay.
I've been in a relationship for 23 years. We had 2 kids together.
Okay.
And, the family considered us married, but we don't have the certificate. And every time that the topic of marriage comes up, I start dwelling on it. I'm just wondering, is there any way to not dwell on it? Because I know once I come into the church, because my parish priest, because of my medical conditions, I haven't been intimate with my wife for the last 6 years because it causes me problems. So he considers us as brother and sister.
Mm.
That's why when I come into church, I'm not going to be considered sinning because brother and sister.
Right.
I just need some help trying to get over. Every time this topic comes up, it gets me into a frenzy.
Okay.
I was just wondering if you can give me some advice.
Okay. So, all right. So, concerning, living as brother and sister, which the priest is directing you to do, that is indeed, Gary, a heavy cross and a heavy burden to bear within that relationship. And the one thing that comes to mind, Gary, maybe just a glimmer of light. You can't dispel the darkness entirely in the mystery of suffering and the crosses that we have to bear in our life. And in no way do I want to minimize or trivialize the burden and the cross that you have to bear here, right? Because it requires great sacrifice. But know, Gary, that if you endure this trial and embrace this trial and offer it to God as a form of sacrifice, it can become an act of worship, right? And inasmuch as it's an act of worship, it becomes an act of love to God. St. Paul teaches us in Romans 12, verse 1 and the subsequent verses, Gary, that we are to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice pleasing to God. So inasmuch as we offer whatever trial that we're going through in our lives to God, it's an act of worship and therefore an act of love. And that act of love that we show God by staying faithful and true to what marriage is and staying faithful and true to the truth itself, right, and concerning human sexuality, etc., that's a witness. That tells God that I appreciate the truth. That tells God that I love you more than my own desires. But even in cases where it's just a physical ailment that we're enduring, we're saying to God, okay, God, I realize I have this suffering in my life, but I recognize that you, God, made flesh, Jesus, suffered for me, for my salvation. And so I'm going to offer this suffering up to God in union with the sacrifice of Jesus Christ so that it can contribute to my growth in sanctity, to my holiness, so that I can enter into a deeper union with you, O Lord. So it's this idea of redemptive suffering, Gary, that you can offer your suffering up to God for the sake of your own soul, but also for the sake of the souls of others, for the salvation of others. Because, Gary, through your sacrificial offering of offering up your trial and your suffering to God, that can become an act of intercession. It's a form of prayer by which you're interceding for graces to be poured out upon your loved ones and upon family members and friends who might be away from the church, and you want them to come to the church. And so this is yet one way in which you can engage in intercessory prayer. Now, granted, yes, it hurts. Yes, it's hard. And we recognize that. But as long as you just keep staying close to Jesus and unite that suffering to the Lord, and you endure the suffering through him, with him, and in him, and know that the Lord will use that suffering for the greater good, whether it be both and the salvation of your own soul and for the salvation of other souls. So you have an opportunity, Gary, here to look at your suffering through the lens of Christ and engage in redemptive suffering in union with Christ and become a hero and exercise acts of heroism, right, in order to set people free. So those are just a few thoughts that come to mind initially.
And Gary, how does that strike you?
That strikes me. I mean, I started thinking about, Jesus while Carlos was talking, and I just started getting teary-eyed, I mean, since I've come into the church, I've become very emotional. I mean, I'm just excited about the Catholic faith.
Praise
beautiful,
God.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Gary, be assured of our prayers as well. We'll be praying for you, my friend, that you stay close to the Lord, that you stay close once you join and enter into the Catholic Church, that you stay close to the sacraments that Christ has given us, because therein lies your source and your power. But even now, before you begin to receive the sacraments in the church, you can stay close to our Lord through his word, in the sacred page, in the Bible. You can even attend Mass. You might not be able to receive Holy Communion yet, but you can still attend Mass and be in the presence of our Eucharistic Lord and receive those graces that he has to offer you, which can empower you, Gary, to continue walking the walk with Christ and carrying your cross daily and following the Lord.
Gary, hang on a second. I got to have a private conversation with Carlo. Hey, can we give him a copy of your book? Would that be all right?
You may.
All right. Gary, if you'd like, we'd like to give you a copy of Carlo's book, Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel and the Church. If you'd like it, hang on, and Marie will get your address that has digits in it, and we will send you that book. Thanks, Gary. Thanks very, very much. Our number, 888-318-7884. Our topic, overcoming obstacles to the Catholic faith, to the Catholic Church. And anybody is welcome to call. We go now to William in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, watching on YouTube. William, thanks for watching us on YouTube. Your question for Carlo.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for taking my call. I'm a cradle Catholic. I've been listening to Catholic Answers for a good 2 years. One of my questions, or one of my obstacles in regard to the faith, would be some of the symbolism that's associated with Christianity. In particular, I could think of like the obelisk that would be in St. Peter's Square, and like other, what I would consider like pagan or neo-Gothic items being found within Christianity. What's the reason behind that, and what does it stand for?
Well, I mean, concerning the obelisk in St. Peter's Square, I can't speak to that because I'll just simply say I don't know what the symbolism is behind that. Maybe perhaps Sai can speak to that. But I think I'll just talk to symbolism in general, William, that, I would approach it in the sense that, and of course the church has always approached it in this sense as well, and it makes sense to me that we are human beings, right? We're not angels. We're not pure spirits who are intellectual beings without a body, right? But we are human beings. We're rational animals. So we have a body that belongs to our nature as a human being. So it is proper and fitting, and we're called to worship God in and through our bodies. So this is why within our sacred liturgy we have the smells, bells, and whistles, etc. But even with regard to statuary, right? Statues and various things that symbolize and point to certain realities. And that's good and fitting for us as human beings because we have the senses, right? We need to see visible objects to call to mind and to focus our attention on those spiritual realities, those supernatural realities that without the symbolism, it may be difficult to us to be attentive to those realities. And remember what St. Paul says, in his epistles, I can't remember the exact citation, but he says, concerning all things good, true, and beautiful, we need to be thinking about these things. We need to be thinking about the heavenly things. And given our human nature, we're easily distracted, right? I mean, just living in modern culture, we're easily distracted, and it's difficult to think about those spiritual realities just in a sort of abstract, intellectual way, although I kind of like the cerebral thing. But
really, Carlo?
But it's helpful for us as human beings, William, that we have visible representations of certain supernatural realities in whatever shape or form that may take. So I think that's just something that I can say and speak to the idea of visible representations in a sort of a general way. What do you think of that, William?
Yeah, no, that sounds real good. It gives me a whole new perspective to look at things. So I appreciate your help.
Can I just say a quick thing about the obelisk? It is an ancient Egyptian obelisk, but the cross is put at the top of it, and the idea is to symbolize the triumph of the church over the pagan beliefs and over the pagan way of life.
There you go.
So, and they have also put Christian symbols on the obelisk itself.
Right.
So like the lion representing Christ, and then I think the not the coat of arms, but some symbol of the church itself, of the Vatican itself, is on the obelisk. So there is a reason for it. The idea is, I mean, the Romans stole it from the Egyptians, I think back Caligula's time or something. So it was there in Rome. The church didn't bring it there. But the idea of putting it there and with the cross on top is the idea of the God, I guess the law of love, the church overcoming the pagan worldview.
Yeah, we always have to ask, what does the symbol represent? Because we don't. The thinking process of what we're thinking about doesn't terminate. It doesn't end in the symbol itself. The symbol is always pointing to some reality beyond itself. And of course, not all symbols are good, right?
No.
Because some symbols point to things that are contrary to reason or immoral or whatever it may be that we would reject as Christians. So we always have to ask, well, what does the symbol represent? And then weigh that which the symbol represents to see if it's consistent with church teaching and with Christianity in general.
Okay, well, thanks very much, William, for that call. We do appreciate it. And we're talking with Carlo Broussard this hour about overcoming obstacles to the church. More calls to come after the break. And you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. We'll try our best to get you in, even though we approach the top of the hour. We've got two great specials running right now today. As a matter of fact, all of our digital products, ebooks, e-magazines, and MP3s are 50% off all week long this week. And you can also save money on hundreds of other items in the store. That promo code we keep giving you, CA Live 18, still works at shop.catholic.com, and you get 30% off hundreds of items there today. 30% off with the promo code CA Live 18 at shop.catholic.com.
It's all about the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
You've heard that St. Paul Street Evangelization supports hundreds of teams of evangelists sharing the good news. But did you know that some of these teams are public prayer stations? Set up a sign on the sidewalk and offer prayer and encouragement to those you encounter. Everyone needs prayer. Try this new method of witnessing to Jesus. Contact St. Paul Street Evangelization to get started at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
You know what Catholic radio is? It's training for the troops. It's a interaural of the ear boot camp. The folks who listen, who grow in their faith, grow in charity, grow in all the virtues, they then go out and exert an influence far beyond just themselves. Catholic radio has an exponential effect for bringing people deeper into the faith.
Dr. Ray Guarendi thinks Catholic radio is important. So should you.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, overcoming obstacles to the Catholic Church this hour with Carlo Broussard, who turned 25 today.
I still feel like I'm 25.
I bet
brother.
you do. Yeah, you. Well, you work out a lot. You're working out all the time. It's important to take care of your body, and I know that every time you work out, you offer it up for me, who does not work out. So thank you for doing that.
Amen. I sure do. I do offer it up. It's Jared Zimmerer. Right?
Jared, our friend Jared Zimmerer.
Our friend Jared Zimmerer.
Yeah.
He has this whole new idea of, I guess it comes from him.
Well, he's a bodybuilder. Yeah.
But I know I got a shirt from him, and it's #new asceticism.
Yeah.
So
right.
the new asceticism is to go and indulge yourself in all of this physical pain, right? And offer it up.
Yeah.
And you get some benefits from it. So I'm sure
which God wants you to have. He wants you to have. Like people sometimes, if I'm getting something out of it, then it's not holy.
Maybe the spiritual masters might critique it a bit, but hey, I work out for the sake of having the energy that I need to be a husband and a father, right?
Yeah.
And to be the best apologist that I can possibly be. And then in the meantime, whatever pain is on the way, I do offer it up, for the greater glory of God.
I'm just kind of bummed that you don't think of me as a spiritual master. I didn't realize that. All right, let's go to Paul in Lakewood, Colorado, listening on the TuneIn app. Delighted to have you with us, Paul. Your question for Carlo Broussard.
Hi there, Carlos. Happy birthday, by the way.
Hey, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, spot on about that question about the elephant in the room.
Amen, brother.
The Judas. Yeah.
Yeah,
spot on.
Thank you.
Now, my question is this huge obstacle. I have left the Catholic faith several years ago, and I don't believe in coincidences because I was born on October 7th, Our Lady of the Rosary. I've been married to my wife for 16 years now.
Okay.
She converted to Catholicism when we got married, but she left Catholicism to go back to her evangelical Christian route.
Okay.
And for this big reason, the issue of contraceptives.
Right.
The big issue is she tried NFP, and we're not sorry, but we got 2 beautiful children out of it, Mari and Michael.
Right.
Now, the big issue is we use contraceptives because, one, we could not afford any more children at all.
Right.
Because I work for the government, not a lot of money. She's a teacher in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah, we're living dual household for a while until I find a job down there. 2, sadly, I have a disease called type 2 Usher syndrome. It's related to the deafness, and I'm going blind as well. And we just afraid to pass this on to any more children of ours.
Right.
Now, this is the biggest obstacle of mine. I'm trying to get back into the Catholic faith, but it's a tremendous guilt. Any way you can give me some feedback on that?
Well, with regard to your feeling of the tremendous guilt, Paul, I mean, if you recognize that the use of contraception is wrong, and as the Church teaches that it is indeed, objectively speaking, a sin and contrary to God's design and plan for human sexuality, then that guilt can get taken care of by you simply returning to the sacrament of reconciliation and receiving God's absolution and removal of that guilt. And indeed, there will be a temporary effect that would result within that, as I've experienced in my life and other people have experienced as well, of a sense of peace within your soul and a peace of mind and knowing that you're in right relationship with God and forgiven of that past sin. But if you're asking with regard to, how do I navigate the waters of trying to understand the Church's teaching against contraception, well, Paul, there's several different ways in which we can approach this. I think the first thing I want to say is that there's nothing wrong with desiring to achieve the end of wanting to either space children, or in your circumstance, that you discern that you can no longer have any children due to your life circumstances. That end in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a legitimate goal to want to achieve, right? So now the question becomes, well, what is the appropriate means to achieve that righteous end, okay, that just end? And of course, the church would say natural family planning is the morally legitimate means to achieve that end. Contraception is immoral. But why is contraception immoral? Well, fundamentally, Paul, is that it's the voluntary use of our sexual powers while actively thwarting that which it's naturally made to achieve, namely procreation. So one way to look at it is that it violates the order of the good that God has inscribed within the nature of our human sexuality. So the good for us as human beings, Paul, and within the arena of our sexual powers, is that when we use our sexual powers, that we use them in a way that's consistent with what they're naturally designed for. For to violate or to thwart our sexual powers from achieving those ends, procreation and unitive love, would be to act contrary to the order of what is good, the order of good that God has inscribed within the nature of human sexuality. And inasmuch as contraception is an act that acts against our goodness, insofar as we're human beings and our human sexuality, well, then it can't possibly be an act of love, which is what sexual intercourse is meant to express. So it undermines what's good for us. It's contrary to our human nature. And inasmuch as it's contrary to our human nature, it's not good for us. And so it's not an act of love. That's one way we could approach it. We could also approach it, Paul, in the sense that it violates our rational nature. It's an unreasonable act, right? So inasmuch as you voluntarily engage in the sexual act, which in and of itself is naturally ordained, designed for the achievement of procreation, so what you're giving with one hand, inasmuch as you're voluntarily engaging in the sexual act, order to procreation, you're taking away with the other. So in essence, it becomes a procreative, anti-procreative act, which violates reason. It's kind of like, sexual coercion. If somebody forces somebody into the sexual act, inasmuch as you're engaging in the sexual act, that's supposed to be a free act. It's supposed to be ordered to sexual love and the union of spouses. But sexual coercion, it gives with one hand, and as much as it engages the act, order to spousal love, but then it's taking it right back. So it becomes a anti-love act. Similarly, contraception becomes a procreative, anti-procreative act. It's contrary to reason. What you're giving with one hand and engaging in the act, order to procreation, you're taking it back by thwarting what it's naturally made to achieve, namely procreation. So it violates our good, and inasmuch as it violates our good, it's not a loving action. It's an unreasonable act because inasmuch as you're engaging in contraceptive sex, you're falsifying, right, what the act is, the intelligibility of the act, right? It's ordered to procreation and unitive love. And so if I act against that procreative end, I'm undermining the truth of the act. So as Pope St. John Paul II often taught, that there needs to be harmony between what the act is about, procreation and unitive love, and the meaning that we subjectively ascribe to it when we engage in it. And when there's not that harmony, when that harmony is lacking, it becomes an unreasonable act. It becomes an act that violates the nature of human sexuality and actually goes against our rational nature.
Paul, we're going to have to leave it there. I would like to get to one more caller if I can before the top of the hour. Ed in Melbourne, Florida, listening on 910 AM Divine Mercy Radio. Real quick, your question for Carlo.
Okay. I hope I can get it real quick. I'll start with, I believe, help my unbelief. One
Amen.
of my obstacles is in the four Gospels, as we all know, they vary. There's variations. They're similar, but not exactly the same. And I have to confess that sometimes I have trouble with that. And I'll give you a particular example. For example, the parable of the fig tree. In one gospel, I believe it's Matthew, I may be mistaken, he talks about the kingdom of God is like a fig tree, and when you see the leaves turning green, you know it's coming.
Okay.
And he also curses a fig tree, and it dies, and the disciples are amazed by that. And then he says, with faith all things are possible. Yet in Luke, the story is completely different.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I got to stop right there. So these discrepancies in the Gospels,
Yeah,
this
so
is an obstacle.
Yeah, so I can't speak to that one in particular, Ed, because I'd have to do a little bit of research on that and go crack open a book. But I can speak, generally speaking, remember, Ed, that the authors were not expected, nor did they write at all times in chronological order. They were permitted to order things in a thematic way, nor were they expected to give a verbatim word-for-word account of what Jesus said. As long as they conveyed the substance of what Jesus said, that was considered legitimate in the authorship among the ancients.
You can also look up contradictions. Just put in the word contradictions at Catholic.com. You'll get all kinds of information.
And Trent Horn's book, Hard Sayings.
Fair enough. Carlo Broussard, the birthday boy, thanks so much for a great hour.
Hey, thank you, Si.
Enjoy the rest of your birthday.
Thank you, brother.
And the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, who we thank so much for that apparition that led to so much of a change in the history of the whole world. Find out about her, read about her online. We'll see you tomorrow for 2 hours of open forum right here on Catholic